Hi, everyone. Welcome to Money Mondays. This is our last workshop. If you've been here from the beginning, we appreciate it. Thank you. Hope you've all been having a great Monday. I know there's been changes in weather still, and hopefully this week it'll be a little bit nicer. I think it was like in the 60s almost. And if you have, not feeling well, you're not having a slight cold. I mean, I'm having a little bit of a cold. So if you hear me cough or sneeze, I apologize now. I am not contagious. I went to the doctor, no COVID. But if you are feeling under the weather, make sure you go to the doctor, you check yourself, get the medicine you need. So for today's presentation, we will be talking about frauds and scams. It's a big topic. So once again, thank you for joining us. This will be our last workshop, like I said. Oh, why? Sorry, I think our internet's just a teeny bit slow. One sec. And this is the Spanish one. Give me 1 second. My apologies. Let me pull up the other one real quick. Just be a moment. Okay, so I have this one. I'm just gonna make sure it's connected. Okay, so, yep, I'm gonna share it now. Okay, so we are back there. Phoebe, you can see it, right? Phoebe's my supervisor. I just want to double check.
Yes, it just needs to be on presentation.
Okay, just want to make sure. Perfect. Okay, so let's get started. If you are new, my name is Claudia Carrera. So thank you for joining. I'm the manager of economic empowerment here at the Hispanic Federation. And before we start, like always, make sure you are muted upon entry. If you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A icon and then use chat for any comments. And as always, want to let you guys know that this is being recorded. Okay. So we have 3 goals for today for our workshop. First one is to learn how to identify the factors that put you at risk. The second one is to know which are the most common frauds and scams you might encounter. And the third one is gain an understanding of how best to protect yourself. And I am going to turn off the video so that you guys can focus on the information for now. Okay, so frauds and scams. I think we've all heard at one point or another about frauds or scams. I'd like to, take a few minutes, if you can, if you want to, if you're comfortable sharing, kind of what you know about frauds and scams. So go ahead, put it in the comments section, in the chat. I'm just gonna wait for like a minute. Okay, and if you don't feel comfortable sharing, no worries, you don't have to. So in an increasingly virtual world, there are many new ways, to fall prey to scammers. Before we get into it, I want to go over kind of what is fraud. Fraud occurs when someone gains something of value, usually money or property, from a victim by knowingly misrepresenting themselves and making dishonest or illegal claims. Okay, just want to check and make sure. Okay, so what are some situations that put us at greater risk? One of them, isolation and loneliness. First one puts an individual at greater risk to falling prey to scams because, they may lack someone to discuss whatever the offer was given or kind of information, and having someone else there, it's good to have kind of that advice or an extra set of pair of eyes, as they say. It can happen to anyone. Unfortunately, it does happen most often with the elderly, though. Second option is, recent losses of loved ones. So the loss of a love presents a risk because of the emotional state of the person. So, someone's upset, it's not really paying attention, kind of, focusing on healing. They're in very vulnerable moments, and scammers are pretty intelligent. They know how to identify that and take advantage of it. So, when we're feeling that way, we're not 100% we're in our grief, and we can't really focus to help analyze the situation. So that's something, to be very mindful of. If you know anybody going through a hard time or a loss, check in on them if you can. The third one is, lack, maybe like physical or mental disabilities that are there and the lack of support for that. So despite the fact, that the average person on disability receives only maybe a few $100s a year above the poverty level, he or she can, be an easy target in many ways by scammers. Unfortunately, one of the most prevalent ways this happens is for, family members or caregivers who have access to personal, information or banking information to steal or transfer money from their accounts. This often goes undetected for months or even years because, especially because a disabled person might rely on them frequently and relies on them for assistance with paying bills or even buying groceries and taking care of other expenses. They trust them completely and don't ever really think about that they would be scammed or stolen from. And then obviously another common tactic that, might impact someone with a disability or mental disability, usually they'll get a call or an email from somebody posing as like a government agent, Social Security, Medicare, the Internal Revenue Service, saying that they need something or more information, and that puts them at greater risk because they are, government offices or individuals that they deal with on a daily basis, maybe given, their situation, what they're dealing with. So that is something that puts them at risk. The other things are, lack of familiarity, and this means like, in regards to financial resources and terminology, modern technology. So the lack of familiarity puts you at greater risk. And then financial crisis, crisis is a sudden lack of, work or illness that prevents income or natural disasters. People, again, going back to kind of the emotions and the feelings, are in these situations and kind of either they're desperate or they're just, trying to find a solution that they may not always analyze what they have, or like their, the information that's given to them, or even like the opportunity that's dishonest. So. And then the other thing is high risk relatives or friends. So when we talk about high risk, we talk about friends or relatives that are going through crisis themselves. So, they have gambling, addictions or addiction issues themselves. And they, given their situation, they will maybe take advantage of the person. So types of fraud and common frauds. There are many variations, of fraudulent payment scams, but there's a typical pattern. There's usually someone gives you money via an electronic payment or check or money order, and then asks you to send, cash in return. When it eventually, becomes clear that a person's story is fake or their payment, was fraudulent, unfortunately, you're responsible for that money that you sent them. So part of that, is I like the different examples. So like work at home, company promises easy money, working at home, they ask you to help them by extending a payment and then sending the money. And then, be like an electronic payment or money order. The other thing is overpayments, right? So like you advertise an item for sale and the buyer accidentally sends you, more than the price, and then the buyer asks you to deposit their payment and send them the extra amount. That's another example of common frauds. And then, another thing is they say sweethearts, right? A special someone you maybe met online promises to come to the US to be with you. They ask you to send them money directly or, deposit their check or money order and send them cash. So that is something that you want to be aware of. And then going to, fraudulent lenders. You receive a notice that the lender who collects your mortgage payment has sold or transferred your service to another lender. But it turns out that the notice is actually fake. And you start sending, your mortgage payments to a phony lender. It's important to remember, under federal law, the loan servicer must notify at least 15 days before any such transfer in writing. So their goodbye letter, for example, must include all the contact information and start date for the new servicer. So contact your original lender to confirm that, the transfer service is actually legitimate. You don't want to be in that scenario. And other variations of a similar scam like this would be, charged by, like phony taxes or fees, so there's a lot of different things that you would be helpful to be aware of for sure. And then we have, financial abuse. So financial abuse, it's the misuse of a position of trust or reliability to convince a person to do something that they would not ordinarily do. So again, most commonly older people, elderly people, usually abuse of legal authority, such as powers of attorney, fiduciary powers, to obtain a loan or withdraw money on behalf of an elderly person or dependent adult. So then they would, sell or change the ownership of that person's property. Credit card fraud. So credit card fraud is the unauthorized use of a credit or debit card or a similar payment tool to fraudulently obtain money or property. Credit and debit card numbers, can be stolen from unsecured websites or can be obtained in, an identity theft scheme. So, or, even simply by stealing the actual card. So very important to be mindful of where you're inputting your information. And I know nowadays, like with Apple Pay and all that stuff and Google Pay and the tap and go, there's so much stuff with your credit cards that you should be mindful of and kind of checking on a daily basis so that you can catch them. But that's really important because there's so many ways that they save your passwords online and everything, and it can get pretty complicated. So other types of common frauds, charity and disaster fraud. Charity fraud schemes seek donations from organizations that do little or no work. Instead, the money goes to the fake charity's creator. So while these scams can happen, at any time, they're especially prevalent after high kind of profile disasters. So even right now with the pandemic, big example, right? A lot of people, there's a mix of a lot of emotions and people losing their jobs and people losing loved ones. So this right now with the pandemic that you've seen a lot of that happen, unfortunately. And because scammers, take advantage of the situation, which is really, really sad. And again, while these scams can happen at any time, again, they really happen after, disasters or events. So charity fraud scams can come to you in many forms. So it can be emails, social media posts, crowdfunding platforms, cold calls, so people just randomly calling you. Always use caution, do your research when you're looking to donate to charitable causes. After a natural disaster or other emergency, there, could be unethical contractors or other scammers that may commit insurance fraud. So it's unfortunate, like re-victimizing people whose homes or businesses, have been damaged, they've gone through a hard time. Sometimes these fraudsters even pretend to be affiliated with the government when they are not. So, and then internet scams, big thing too. So one of them was, the Nigerian letter frauds. I think that was in the news a while ago, but example, Nigerian letter frauds, was offering, the opportunity, to share in a percentage of millions of dollars. So then it's according to the author, self-proclaimed government official royalty, is trying to transfer illegally out of Nigeria. The recipient, is encouraged to send information to this author, such as a blank letterhead, stationery, bank name, account numbers, other identifying information using a fax number or a return email address provided in that message. The scheme, relies on convincing a willing victim to send money to the author of this, of the person who wrote this email in Nigeria. And so in actuality, the millions of dollars, don't exist, and the victim eventually ends up with nothing. They lose a lot. So once, this victim stops sending money, the perpetrators have, been known to use the personal information and checks that they received to impersonate this victim, draining their bank accounts or even, maxing out their credit card balances. So non-delivery of merchandise is a scheme most often linked to internet auction fraud, in which a seller on an internet auction website accepts payment from an item, yet intentionally, fails to ship it. So sellers like these sometimes will re-enlist the item and then attempt to sell it again through a different username. Then, romance scams. So romance scams occur when a criminal, adopts a fake online identity. I'm sure we've seen like Lifetime movies about this, but it does happen. So fake online identity to gain a victim's affection and trust. This scammer then, uses the illusion of a romantic or close relationship to manipulate and steal from this victim. The criminals who carry out romance scams are experts, at what they do, and will seem genuine, unfortunately caring, very believable, but they're con artists, right? They're con artists that are just trying to, be dishonest and cheat people out of their stuff. But usually con artists are present on most dating and social media sites, so very mindful of that. The scammer's, intention is usually to establish a relationship as quickly as possible, endear, themselves to the victim, gain trust. Scammers may propose, marriage and make plans to meet the person, but never happens, and eventually they will ask for money. And then scam artists often say they are in the building and construction industry and are engaged in projects outside of the US, which that makes it easier to avoid, meeting them in person. So keeping that distance. And then more plausible, when they ask for money for a medical emergency or unexpected legal fee. So if someone you meet online needs your bank account information, to deposit money, don't fall for it. They're most likely using your account to carry out, other theft and fraud schemes. This is a big one. This is something that identity theft, right? We've heard about it, again, probably seen movies about it. It's really scary, but it does happen. So identity fraud is usually limited to an isolation attempt to steal money from an existing account, such as just charge on a stolen credit card. And with identity theft, a thief uses your personal information, such as your social security number, your bank number, to open accounts or initiate transactions in your name, which will cause, significant financial loss or damage, your credit. If, fraudulent transactions occur on your account, it does not automatically mean that your identity was stolen. It may be, an isolated incident that can quickly be resolved. So it's super important to contact your bank for more information. Kind of going back to what I stated before too, of like constantly checking your bank statements. And nowadays I know they have like, you can sign up for text, so they can text you when something has been, charged that doesn't look, like your familiar, patterns of buying or shopping. So that's something really important to kind of keep that in mind, because again, they use a lot of your personal information and can also damage your, credit that you've established. So common methods of identity thefts. One of them, dumpster diving, right? They rummage through your trash looking for bills, or, other papers with personal information on it. So it's always important to black that out with a marker. They have like these huge, I think, stamps now that you can just use, or, shred them, cut them up, rip them up as best you can. Very important. And then the second one is, credit card cloning or skimming. Skimming, they steal credit card debt numbers by using a special storage device. So when processing your card. And then the last one is phishing. So they pretend to be financial institutions or companies, and send spam or pop-up messages to get you reveal your personal information. Another part of identity theft, changing your address, right? So they divert to your billing statement, and they'll divert to another location by completing, a change of address form. Then we have traditional theft, which is, the old-fashioned stealing, as they say. They steal wallets or purses, mail. So this includes any bank and credit card statements, pre-approved credit offers. We always get those and just throw them out. Be very mindful to shred them, black the information out with the marker. Very easy for people to get, because I know they send a ton of them. And then any new checks or tax information. They steal personal records from their employers or bribe employees who have access. So most important, how to prevent, falling victim to these scammers and frauds. So first things first is always organize and understand your personal finances. Organize all your financial information, into one file if you can. Help your other family members, close friends do the same, or have them help you if you need an extra support system. There's no wrong way of doing that. It's just something that, can help support you in the best way that helps you kind of keep that all in one place where you constantly can check back on, easily accessible. So knowing your finances will make it easier, to detect, like we were mentioning before, any inconsistencies and catch warning signs early. And then check your monthly bank statements and your credit card report. So both, again, everything, nice is online, and it's nice that they all have apps. But the apps also, can print, everything is right there. So if you make it a habit of kind of checking, even maybe, once a week, again, setting up those texts, that should be super helpful. And then, third thing, always look out for the warning signs, right? So keep an eye out for warning signs. So accounts on your credit reports that you didn't open, any incorrect personal information from your credit reports, credit inquiries from, companies that you've never contacted, inaccurate balances showing on your accounts and your credit reports, unauthorized withdrawal, any of those, definitely check them and try to get them as soon as possible. And then bills that you use, to get that are no longer being delivered to you. Very important things to keep an eye out for. Most important though, do not share your PIN or passwords. I know we all have those Netflix accounts and stuff. And I know that's hard not to share, especially with family members, but be very mindful who has it. And if you do share, be very mindful, just for the Netflix ones, because bank never share that, never, unless it's in an emergency situation. But even then, be very mindful who you give your information to. And, tell the other person, they're not allowed to share that with anybody else. Sometimes that needs to be communicated with family members or other siblings, so. Again, some other things to kind of help you prevent being scammed is, report the loss of theft of cards. Make sure that any mailboxes that you use, they're secure, they're protected. And again, any suspicious calls or texts, keep an eye on them, make sure that you know where they're coming from. And if you don't, kind of look into them, explore them, even call them if you have to, so that that they're not misusing your information. And then again, like we were talking about suspicious emails, you have to be very careful about what's on these emails and kind of what they're sending. Okay, so some more, helpful prevention tips are: don't carry important documents with you. So like your passport or social security number, keep them in a safe space. Don't carry them with you unless you absolutely need them, and if you do, make sure they're not in your coat pockets, put them somewhere safe in your purse and in a zipper. And then obviously shred your documents, kind of like I was saying before, so that, none of that personal financial information, anyone can get copies about them, checks, very important, destroy them, write, void on them. So even with expired debit and credit cards, destroy them, shred them if you can. And then again, try not to share any financial information. It's especially now with the digitalized world that we live in. You never know who has access to that, who can gain access. There's so many people that are trying to hack, emails and social medias and stuff all the time. So whether by text or over the phone, in social media or in an email, don't share your passwords or account numbers, debit card numbers. So unless you trust the source, right? So like you're ordering food or buying over the phone, that's actually someone that is a reliable organization or person. Don't share your financial information. And again, financial information doesn't only refer to like numbers, but like answers to security questions. So, what's your, for example, your mother's maiden name of your first pet. You may see them going around, one day on memes or games and social media. So you don't necessarily want to put that out there. And it's happened that, some people will take that information and, you realize that too late. And a lot of us are guilty of this. Our passwords are, personal information. So maybe our brother's name, birthday, or mom's, birthday. So trying to be mindful of not try not to use that information. So what should you do if you fall victim, to anything? There's always, support. There is like a solution, and you're not the first person to go through it. First of all, notify your bank, right away. Don't wait, call them. Even if it's something you bought and you forgot, it happens. You can call them and be like, where is this coming from? Very important to establish that relationship with your bank so that you can contact them and they've seen that there is an ongoing kind of communication. Next thing is notify the credit agencies, right? Like sometimes we don't always have time to sit down and review our credit reports, but again, making a habit of trying to do that at least once a month. So that you can catch anything that shouldn't be on there, and call them even if you don't remember. It's okay. I mean, they get many calls a day. They are there to help you and kind of figure things out. Third thing is to notify authorities, if applicable. If you see something, if somebody deliberately took something from you and wasn't authorized to, definitely you can notify the authorities. And then again, right away, if you can, if you don't, need that account, you can consider closing or freezing the accounts right away so that you don't fall victim to that and lose a lot of money or destroy your credit. And here are some helpful resources. So, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, Federal Trade Commission, the FBI, they have a lot of great helpful information and solutions and even examples of what you should be mindful of. So when you have a chance, check them out. And then, food for thought. So stay alert, inform yourself. The best way to kind of stay ahead of this is to take charge of your financial situation, your financial information, your financial future, kind of making that a habit like we've discussed, making that a pattern. So the more you learn, the fewer opportunities there'll be, to make mistakes for not knowing. And then the most important thing, staying informed and in control of your finances. So that's the most important thing to kind of help avoid this. Okay, so that concludes our final workshop. And then again, if you want to stay in the loop, if you're interested in learning more about our organization, please check us out, sign up for our newsletter. We have many different departments, so not just economic empowerment, but environment, immigration, civic engagement, and health. As always, like here is our information, we offer health insurance. So if you would like to call our, health department and kind of ask about our insurance, please do at 1-833-656-262 or email them. We're happy to help. Also visit our website, HispanicFederation.org, and you can even text us. And as always, we have our survey. So please take a moment Please take our survey. Please let us know kind of what more information you want to see, kind of stuff that you enjoy and stuff we can improve on. We're always happy to kind of adjust and improve. Okay, so let me take questions now. I'm going to see if there's anything here. Give me one moment. Okay, so I'm going to come on camera. I think it's on. Okay, so I'm just going to see if there are any questions real quick. Hi, Tatiana. Thanks for joining. Oh, that's great. It's wonderful. Yeah, I mean, spread the word. If whatever you learn here, and again, they'll be on our YouTube, like share it with your family and friends, anything that can help. There's always something. So, and if you have any questions, we are always here too. We're always happy to help. So thank you for joining. I don't see any more questions, but oh, thank you, Tatiana. Well, we appreciate you for joining. So again, we will pass around the one pager. Please take the survey. And then if you have any questions, we will definitely get back to you. So I hope everyone has a healthy and happy night. And hopefully you'll join us for future events. I know this is the last of our Money Mondays, but we will be having more events. So, tune in for us. Okay. All right, everyone. Have a great night.